Fanfic Corner, presented by Animal Girl. Ember Star, Book 1, Phoenix Rising, Preface and Chapter 1, written and read by Animal Girl. Hi everyone, and welcome to a new installment of Fanfic Corner. Now, some of the characters in this story are going to seem very familiar, as they are mythical creatures, but a couple of them, 3, are actually creatures that I created, and they are known as phoenix cats. The rest are sphinxes, griffins, chimeras, and a little sphinx chimera cross. Now, the sphinx and the griffin, I don't go into too much description of. They are basically your traditional sphinx and griffin. They're just anamorphic, which basically means that they walk upright and wear clothes like a human. The chimeras are as well. They are anamorphic, as is the little sphinx chimera cross. The chimeras, however, I do give description on, and that will be within the story. But as for the phoenix cats, since I created them, I'm just going to give you a little background on what they look like so you can visualize them properly in your head as you listen to this story. Basically, for a phoenix cat, picture a griffin, but more cat than bird. Basically, lion body, lion head, and all that, but instead of a lion's tail, they have like a phoenix-like tail, and they have like a phoenix headdress on top of their head, and out of their shoulders are fiery wings. And they're also a very bright orange in coloring with yellow and black markings and red accents. And their eyes can range from a very deep, dark green to a very bright green. They almost always have green eyes. It just ranges in color. They're also extremely intelligent, almost to the point of human intelligence, yet they are classified as an animal. So that will be very important with some other characters later on down the line. So here we go into my first book, or my first chapter, and the preface of my first book in Ember Star's story. Ember's mother and father always told her to not become attached to any creature other than another phoenix cat. Not because they believed other creatures to be inferior, but because phoenix cats live such long lifespans that she would have to watch her friends grow old and die while she remained young. But when Ember left her family to join the Mystic Knights and learn to control the magic she was born with, ultimately becoming the only Mystic Knight to be classified as an animal, it became hard to follow that advice. For over 900 years, she served the Mystic Knights faithfully until war broke out, and she served as a general alongside her fellow knights until the war ended. That's when things took a dark turn, and many of her friends were killed. For a year, she lived on a remote planet with an old friend she helped train years ago, and then in turn helped him train his own student before the war started. When she heard the magic call her to another planet, there she crossed paths with another old friend she helped train, and helped defeat the king's men that took over the small planet. When the battle was over, and her friend was ready to move on and continue the fight against the king, Ember would have loved to have gone to stay by her side. But her friend was grown up and fully trained. As dangerous as the path she was about to take was, she would be fine. She would find her way and could look after herself. Besides, there was someone else who needed Ember more than she did. Nearly 14 years had passed since that dark day, and Ember looked just the same now as she did then. The only change was the bandana she now wore around her neck. Though everyone knew that phoenix cats couldn't be killed, she felt it best not to advertise that she was once a mystic knight. The chimera next to her, however, had changed a lot in that time. It had been 12 years since the magic had led Ember to him, and in that time Aiden had grown up. Having lost his teacher on that dark day, he had spent a year trying to survive on his own. That's when Ember had found him, and picked up his training where his teacher had left off. For several years it had been just the two of them. Then they had met a young female sphinx named Lyra 6 years ago. 18 at the time, both Lyra and Aiden had been drawn to each other, and Ember wasn't about to try and keep them apart. For 8 years, Aiden had nothing to keep him going. Ember wasn't surprised that the two got married 6 months later, and nearly a year after they met, a female chimera sphinx cross Aiden and Lyra named Twyla after Aiden's first teacher was running around the ship. 5 years later, they were joined by a male griffin named Joff, and a 14-year-old female chimera pup named Candy, and a 14-year-old male chimera pup named Sam. Add Lyra's cybernetic wolf Radar to the mix, and they were quite the unusual family. All negatively impacted by the king, they had been doing what they can to help those who were suffering under his rule the most. Ember sniffed the air. Another phoenix cat was close by, but she couldn't pinpoint where it was, or if it was a male or a female. This wasn't good. A female would be edgy, having another female in her territory, especially if she had cubs. And things could be even trickier with a male. If he was older, he would be protective of his family. If he was younger, he would show interest in her, and she would be forced to let him know that she wasn't interested in taking a mate. None of those things were good. She couldn't afford a fight right now. "Ember," Aiden called to get her attention. "Coming," Ember said. The pair walked past the merchant's stalls and right by a tall griffin with a lion half that was golden brown and an eagle half that was brownish gold, dressed as a bounty hunter just like Aiden. However, where Aiden was wearing yellow and deep blue, which showed off his tan fur and brown horse mane and tail, the griffin was wearing blue and silvery gray. Ember swished her tail as they passed, a signal to the griffin to get into position. She did the same when they passed a pair of 14-year-old chimeras, one wearing battle armor and the other dressed in mismatched clothes of an orange shirt and ripped jeans. Like Aiden, and like all chimeras, they had the head of a wolf, the ears of a bat, and a mane and tail like a horse. Though where Aiden and the male pups' manes and tails looked scruffy, like all male chimeras, the females' pups had waves in them, like all female chimeras. The pups' fur was also much lighter, and the females' mane and tail were dyed aqua and light blue, while the males were auburn. The scent hit Ember again, causing her to stop and take a deep breath. She could tell that the phoenix cat was closer than it was before, but she couldn't tell where it was. She couldn't focus on that now. She and her friends had a mission to complete. Just as they had distracted the king's men and were ready to get what they came for, it happened. A little street thief stole one of the packets of food from the crates, a cat the size of a lion cub. With yellow fur, orange markings on its paw and face, and bright red feathery tail and headdress, and red fire-like wings, There was no doubt what kind it was. A phoenix cat like her, only much younger. Ember could also tell that it was a female, and the one she had been smelling. "I'll stop her," Ember said as she took off after the cub. As soon as she had taken off, Ember realized that she had made a mistake. Her cat side was modeled after a lioness, so she was built for power and strength, but she couldn't hope to keep up with the fast-moving cub in a crowded street by simply running after it. Her wings would have given her an advantage, but the alleyway was too narrow and too crammed with shops for her to spread her wings. Another thought crossed her mind. This was a cub, and it was very likely Ember would run straight into an overprotective mother and possibly a protected father. However, she pushed this thought aside since she couldn't sense any other phoenix cats in the area. The cub veered out of the city and into the open land. This would give Ember the advantage. She would have the ability to run flat out and the space to use her wings. The cub skidded to a stop in front of a cluster of rocks, and Ember stopped right behind her. The cub looked at her with big green eyes, and it finally struck Ember. This cub was young. Judging by her small size, Ember pegged her at just under 100 years old. Still a baby by phoenix cat standards. Ember Star sniffed the air, trying to scent another phoenix cat, and let out a yell to call the cub's parents to her, but nothing happened. She looked at the cub. "Where are your mom and dad?" she asked. The cub cocked her head to one side, clearly not understanding what Ember was saying. It was entirely possible that she was still too young to speak Common. She tried again, in the phoenix cat language, and got immediate results. But what she learned gave her pause. The cub's parents had been taken, and the cub left behind. Ember sighed. There were no other phoenix cats in the area. As crazy as things were for her and her friends, she'd have to take the cub under her wing and look after her until she was old enough to take care of herself. She did it years ago with Aiden, and Aiden and Lyra were raising a 5-year-old in all this. Bending down, she picked up the cub and flew off in the direction of the meeting place she and her friends had set up in case they got separated.